Welcome to the newest edition of the MOSHAPE Minute, brought to you by the Missouri Society of Health and Physical Educators. The MOSHAPE Minute is powered by Heart Zones. Heart Zones is on a lifelong mission to get the world fit by engaging and motivating everyone with their three-part formula consisting of technology, methodology, and training. Now, here is your host, MOSHAPE board member, Chris Stehle.
Thank you, Dina, for the marvelous introduction. Guests, welcome. It's Monday. It's time for the MOSHAPE Minute again. And I am super excited as we have a very special guest who's going to share a wonderful story about how what we teach in our classes apply to our students in the real world. So before I bring in our special guest, I want to share a very interesting fact with our audience. Did you know that in 1 year alone, almost 500,000 Americans die from a cardiac arrest? That is correct. 475,000 Americans on average die from cardiac arrest a year. So that is proof that us as physical education and health teachers need to make sure we are teaching about proper exercise for lifelong fitness and activity. And also our health teachers, please continue to do a great job. Teach about heart health, the CPR, and all those different things of how we can protect our students in the future with their heart health. So with that being said, I'm going to bring on a very special guest, Mr. Dave Witter. Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for letting me be here. I'm glad to do this.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on. You have a very inspirational story that you're going to share with us here in a few moments on the show. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, can you please share a little bit about your background with the audience?
Well, I'm currently teaching the Rockwood School District, teach at Lafayette High School, and I also teach in our Rockwood Summer Academy, which is where I met Lucy, who we're going to talk about during our conversation. And I've been doing this for 7 years. I spent some time in administration from Kansas State University, but I'm not too far from the end of a career in education. So this is one of those good ways to kind of wrap everything up.
It's interesting, from Kansas State University, I'm a big Oklahoma Sooners fan, and we can't figure out a way to beat Kansas State the past couple of years in football. So,
yeah. That's right.
So before we get into your story, another interesting fact, and you and I talked a little bit about the show, is you in your health class, it's part of the state curriculum to teach your students CPR. And so for our audience that maybe doesn't teach CPR, doesn't realize the importance of it, they need to realize, and everyone needs to realize, CPR can double or even triple a person's chance of survival from sudden cardiac arrest. And I think that is something that, I know I make sure I get my CPR certification updated when needed. And so being a coach and a PE teacher, it's just one of those things, it's very important. And I think you would agree in your health curriculum to make sure you hit that CPR training.
Yeah, there's no doubt that what we do with our CPR training is, we teach a lot of different components when we teach our health class. And this is one when I say, when you walk out of this door, my ambition is that you are able to go do something exactly like Lucy was able to do.
Well, speaking of Lucy, we have a very great story that you're going to share with us now. So go ahead and tell the audience the story about Lucy and kind of, just tell us what happened.
Well, we had a student, I think 2 summers ago now, during the Rockwood Summer Academy, a student by the name of Lucy. And Lucy, actually, Dr. Fine from Rockwood contacted me about a month ago. And he said, I don't know if you're aware that there's a human interest story of one of your students who was able to implement some of your lessons. And what had basically happened was Lucy, they were having a New Year's Eve celebration, and she heard a sound from the other room, a little bit of panic. Her mom came into the room and told her sister to call 911. And Lucy ran into the other room, and the first thing we teach them in CPR is check. And she checked the scene, and she saw that her grandfather was laying on the ground unconscious and unresponsive. The adults in the room were kind of struggling with what the next step was. And Lucy, in part through the training she received in our class, was able to immediately respond. We had already called 911, so we'd done the second step of the 3 C's. And she went in, and along with her father, Lucy was able to do the chest compressions, and her father was able to do the breathing, and eventually revived her grandfather. So a tremendous story, very motivational story, very personal story, which was kind of a neat thing for Lucy to have shared. I reached out to Lucy just a couple of days ago, and she just keeps, to her credit, she keeps reinforcing the need for the benefit of those lessons and how those lessons transfer to what she does or what she did, and the importance of exactly what we're doing. Sometimes in school, kids question, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Well, here's your answer. And this is that real life application that you want all of your curriculums across the content to kind of be able to do for a student.
And that's when I first heard that story, you mentioned Dr. Fine, he actually reached out to me and told me about that story. And he sent me a couple articles that were where Lucy was interviewed. And I find it fascinating that a student, such a young soul, was able to, stay calm, because I'll be honest, a lot of adults, even with CPR training, there may be that situation's a very stressful situation. And with that being said, there had been times where children as young as 9 years old have saved the lives of others with CPR. And that's just fascinating. And like you said, what we teach all across our curriculum, it does have importance to it. And, sometimes students may say, well, I don't understand, I'm never going to use this, but they're going to. They might have. Hopefully not every single one of our students has to use CPR in their life, but it's phenomenal, because I've had a situation similar to Lucy's, but more in a public setting. And my first thing was, okay, where's the AED? Because that's going to make it, But she was very responsive. She was obviously in a home setting where homes typically don't have the AEDs. And the fact that she just went straight on those 3 C's, and it seems like didn't skip a beat. And Dave, one final question before you leave. We obviously hear your story, and Lucy is, that's one of those stories that you'll share for a lifetime as a proud teacher. Can you tell the audience a little bit why you chose the career path you chose?
Well, there's several different factors. This is probably the ultimate factor, where kids can use lifelong lessons and apply that to what they do beyond. I had, probably like a lot of educators, I had some great teachers, and I knew when I was a junior in high school that I wanted to be like these guys. And so that's probably the initial motivation. But I tell my students the first day of every class, there are a lot of classes in this school that are much harder than this one. There are a lot of classes in this building that are much more stringent and are more noticeable by colleges and universities. But I will tell you today, there's no more important class in this building than health class. And the reason is at some point you'll have your ACT score. At some point you'll have your GPA. At some point you'll have your class rank and your scholarships, and you will be pursuing whatever you want to pursue after high school. And then you're going to need me. And then you're going to need the content of a health class. And when we teach our CPR, we have our kids show a proficiency video, and I can almost see, I can almost see Lucy doing the exact actions that she did during her CPR proficiency video. So, this is why we do it. And it's this is one of those things, health and the ability to save someone's lives and apply practically, those lessons beyond high school. That's the reward. That's the thing that kind of looks you back. And like you said, I'll be able to say that I taught a student, and again, much to Lucy's credit, obviously very mature and very focused on what she was doing, but the repetition that we do during the instruction, she was able to do something that means everything in the world to her grandpa and their family. So good for her that she was able to do that.
Yeah. And seeing some of the interviews Lucy has done, she's also very appreciative of your class and what she learned in your class. And I think that's the ultimate thing. So Dave, thank you so much for sharing this story. It's a super inspirational story. I think, especially now with the COVID situations going on, not only in the state of Missouri, but all over, a lot of teachers are wondering, and let's be quite honest, physical education, health, and a lot of those core classes are kind of being pushed back. And the fact that this is something that can inspire our teachers to say, hey, just keep going. Times are rough, but what you do is a big thing for our kids in the future. So Dave, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure. And hopefully you don't have any more Lucy stories, because we don't want any more cardiac arrests. But at the same time, I know your students will do a good job if they are in that situation, as Lucy proved. So that just goes to show how great of an educator you are. And we wanted to share your story. So thank you to our audience. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to listen to any of our MOSHAPE Minutes, the video formats of the interviews are always on our Instagram, our Twitter, Facebook, and also our YouTube channel. And also you can listen to all of our interviews in podcast form on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Everybody enjoy this wonderful Monday and have a great week.